The reason why we're having this webinar today is that we've had some people that are new to the program. They've added some more staff, or you're definitely welcome to join if you just want an overview. If it's been a while and you just need an overview of the tools and the process, then that's what we're going to cover today. If you have any questions, you can either just ask them or put them in the chat, and we can go over those. And if you're not speaking, or you have some extra noise in the background, you can mute your either mute your phone or your computer speaker, so that way it'll help minimize any background noise. So what I want to do is just get started with showing you where to find different resources. So we do have a short URL that you can do, illinoisworknet.com/YCP partners to get to the partner information, or you can always access all of our partner information from the footer and partner resources. And then within partner resources, you'll see there's 2019, 2018 for Youth Career Pathways. And what we're going to talk about right now is PY 2019. So what we did was we tried to take a lot of the lessons learned and the tools that we did for 2018 and enhance them for 2019. And that even goes back to even with our partner guide. So on our partner guide, we have the direct link to the partner tools. There's more than one way to get to those tools, but that's one way you can. We have partner guidance, which are articles that have related resources and videos. We have archived partner training videos with the links to the resources as well. We have our full list of resources, and then updates. And so we also have, down below is our event calendar. So you can see what the upcoming events are for our webinars, and we do adjust them based on our subject matter experts availability. So just so you know that just in general, these are the topics that will be covered in the future, but it might have to change it a day or so, depending on weather or availability. I want to go ahead and click on the full list of resources, because we have our instructions, more resources, and some of the things that we've added over here. These are the articles. And Jake, for example, we just last week, I guess, did last week or the week before, I have to look at the list, did a webinar that covered our reporting. And so we have just a general article on reporting, plus the list of different related resources, plus the archived webinar. So if you have any questions about any of these, these different topics, I'm sure we'll be adding more. But the things that we go through today, like getting started, recruiting, going through the intake process, service delivery, those different things, each of them have a basic article, and like I said, the related resources that you can still find here are associated with them, as well as if we've done any webinars on that particular topic. Okay, so that's the partner guide. And I'm going to get out of that for the moment. Okay, the other side of this is we're back to Illinois WorkNet homepage, and we have a guide for your youth as well. And so, this is for, we only have one right now for the 2019. So you can go to Youth Career Pathways, and we have some information about the career pathways. And as you go through each of these areas, they can learn a little bit more about the programs that are available. I'm going to go ahead and just mute some where I can see where some of that background noise is, and just type in the chat like if you would like to be unmuted. Okay. So anyway, we have an area in here for training program search, and as part of this program was for you to set up your training program, and we'll go through that in just a little bit. But I wanted to show you this page because I want you to know that whenever you put your information into the training program search, it populates it in multiple areas. And this public-facing view is one of those areas. So if you know, anybody, the general public, comes along and they see that you offer this program, they can look at your program information. That's all the information that you have entered in. They could look at the related career information that you have about the particular program. And they could look at the related credentials, like this says prepares you to earn that type of certificate. So that information is available to the general public. The next step is to apply for the program. With the 2019 version of the tools, we do have it out, the link to the application, or the what we call the intake form. We do have that out here and available to the general public. We also have included what we call a slide share, basically a PowerPoint, that if you have a group of people and you're going to be completing the application as a group, you can put this up on the screen and just walk through the application and the different pieces and parts. Or the other thing is so that if someone has a question about what's in the application, they can go to this page and take a look at it. One of the things that they have to have an Illinois WorkNet account in order to complete the application. And it says, do you already have an Illinois WorkNet account? Yes or no. If they don't, they can set one up on the fly. So my recommendation is, if you know that the youth does not have an Illinois WorkNet account, don't have them created ahead of time. Just have them created in line with when they're completing the application. When they do that, then they don't have to go through the process of confirming. It just streamlines the process. Then they go through the terms of and they agree, and then they enter some pre-screening questions just to make sure that they are going to be eligible to participate in the program. They're encouraged, or they're told, to really complete the career cluster inventory at this point so that they can identify their top 3 choices. If they've already done that before, they can just go in and identify their top 3 career cluster choices. They select which organization they want to work with. And then they can see the different types of training programs, like I had mentioned before, like what you just saw on the previous screens, where you could see the different types of training programs that are available, and they can read about those training programs and see if it's something that they're interested in participating. If so, they can continue to move forward, and they'll provide information about their employment goals, what their preferences for participating in training, how far are they willing to travel or able to travel. We have some questions in here about physical demands, and these are not meant to exclude anybody from a particular training program or you know, discourage anybody from going into a particular career area. The purpose is so that, you know, they can do their own little self-assessment. Like, this is like, I want a job where, you know, maybe I don't have to lift 55 pounds, or maybe, you know, that doesn't bother me, or where I have to stand or sit for 8 hours a day versus, you know, standing or sitting, those type of things. So we ask those questions so that they can, you know, can help you and them, you know, figure out the type of work environment that they would like to be in. And then there are a few.
And Natasha, can I just speak to that really quickly?
Yep.
So it's really good, and I always encourage every agency to be really honest, because you have to think you're putting people in these programs. So say manufacturing. If you talk to a group of high school students, 9 times out of 10, they probably have some idea of manufacturing, but they don't know exactly what these particular jobs are doing. So it's really imperative that you let them know exactly what it is. Maybe talk to them or upload videos about job shadowing, or show them an actual manufacturing facility. Because what we've learned in the last grants is that we had a lot of people that were saying, hey, I'm interested in this, want to do it. And then they actually got into the programs and actually saw what the day-to-day work was, and they did not. So then they drop from your program, and now you're, you know, missing a client or anything like that. So you want to make sure that you're being really honest about the day-to-day, what they're really doing on these jobs, and just, you know, any uniforms or whatever the case may be. So I just can't encourage everybody enough to just do that and just be honest with your clients. And we also, for these grants, the jobs that you get them after the programs have to match your training program. So you cannot train them in CNA, but they get a job in manufacturing, and you count that as a success. It has to be the same. So if you're going in the medical field, it has to be medical. All right.
Yep. Thank you. There are some other checks, whether it has to do like with background checks, driver's license, if they have any moving violations, and those are more just to, you know, let a person know up front that maybe, you know, if they have a violent felony, that they may not be able to do certain jobs, or, you know, you may have to go through some other processes to help them clean up some of their background information before they could be in certain types of jobs. So again, it's not necessarily like to exclude or get anybody from not participating in a training program. It's just making sure that they are able to get a job in that field once they have completed the training program. So then what it's going to do is going to tell them if they have anything that any of the programs that are a match, and if it is, then they can click the link and they can learn more about that and decide, do they want to participate? And if they do, then we start collecting more of the information that is required for them to certify their application in IWDS. So we have the different demographic information, education level, employment history. If they don't have anything, they just say, nope, I don't have anything, and they can move on. Or if they do, then they can enter in their employment history, and then more about the different, you know, challenges that may make it more difficult, if they might need some assistance with whenever completing the program. And then we always ask like more like, oh, so how did you hear about the program? That's our last question. They would review the intake form, and they have the opportunity to edit the information once they have looked it over. And once they said that it's all good, then they just submit their intake form. And then in the public-facing area, we tell them, you know, what they need to do. So they're going to meet with a career planner, discuss training program options, decide if they're going to participate, and if they do participate, they're going to get a training plan, learn, training, mentoring, support services, those types of things. And then we give them the quick start guide to some of the other information in Illinois WorkNet if they want to go ahead and jump in and get started with some of those things. So those are the public-facing tools. I'm going to close out some of these windows. Okay, so once you're, just real quick, go ahead and open this into a new tab. Everybody's already in the system, and so I'm in test right now. So, but if you need to go in and update something that's related to your training program, you can do so. You just go to provider info, training programs, edit, and then you can go ahead and update the information as needed in this area. So we have program information, baseline requirement information, and credentials. So again, you can update that information anytime. We also have some grantee information. We haven't, I don't think that we have covered this in a webinar, but we can do that in the near future. Where you can update your grant information, and any training programs and work sites information that you have will populate this tab. But we'll have an upcoming webinar. We'll need to make sure we incorporate that in one of the upcoming webinars. Okay, so this is all like these different things we're talking about with these training programs. That's part of the whole process of like getting set up and everything. But like I said, everybody is already set up with training programs, so the only thing that you're going to need to do is edit those when needed. Okay, so your customer is, so you're going to do your outreach to your customer, to potential customers. They're going to complete the intake form. They're going to decide that if they want to participate in the program or not. And then once they submit that application, then they are put into your customer list. So you'll see a listing for Youth Career Pathways. When you click on that link, you'll see your full list of customers. Whenever you are talking to us about a customer, we prefer that you use the WorkNet ID, and then we don't have to worry about personal identifiable information being transmitted back and forth via email. I mean, it's okay usually to say like last name, but we really prefer WorkNet ID. And then, so you can see their name is the link to all their information, but then you can see the different other things. Like you could filter on whenever they most recent intake form when it was submitted. You can see what their eligibility status is, their IWDS status. And we'll talk about the different IWDS statuses in just a few minutes. You can see if they have their career plan and their placement status. When we say placement status, this means work site placement status. So this is kind of just, these little areas up here are filters where you can filter on, the basic information that you're looking for. Okay, I'm going to go into, these are our test people, and so I'm going to go into one that's pretty much already built out so you can see this person. When you first come to this page, we have an overview page, and the basic setup for these pages are you're going to have a profile here, and so you can click on see all. So when you see all, you can see a lot more information. If you need to update their contact information, you can do that. You can see intake form, application, all the different types of things. There's like a ton of information in their profile. But we usually keep it all scrunched up so that you can get to the tools that you're most likely going to use on each of these pages and just display the main information that, that you would need on a regular basis. We have reset password. You can reset your use password at any time. You can send them messages. And then for each of these pages, where applicable, we have the related instructions or else the related article that I was talking about earlier that's available also in the partner guide. When your person first comes in here, you're not going to see this 30-day review because they haven't been in the system for 30 days. But once they have been in the system for 30 days, every 30 days you're going to be asked to just review the information, make sure it's all up to date and accurate, and also submit, make sure you have case notes just to keep the file current. We added an overview page because we wanted to make sure that everybody knew the pieces and parts that needed to be completed in Illinois WorkNet, and to give you easy access to that and to show you at a glance what the status is for each individual. So we have the intake form. Once they've submitted it, this turns green that says complete. And we have intake review, and then so each of these. So if it's either complete, not complete, or not applicable. We have an area where you can add other partners as part of creating an integrated resource team for this individual. So if I click view, I can see the different partners, or I can, add more partners. We have a career plan that will be filled out. We have worksite placement, and then we have an outcomes section. Each of these are links to the tabs where you'll be entering the data. You'll notice that this one isn't. It's because you do it right here. The next place is the intake form. We try to kind of put these in an order of, how you would use them, how you would complete them. This is the information that was added and submitted by the customer. You can print this application if you wanted to for their files, and you can include the signatures that they are interested in participating. We have the intake review. So the intake review, you'll notice that on these pages, we tried to, again, stay consistent with the overview so you can see the main components. We're going to look at suitability, we're going to look at eligibility, and then we're going to submit the information to IWDS for eligibility. So you can see those basic areas, again, what the result was, what their current status is. Oh, before I get too far down the page, I also want to show you that we always try to keep a case notes area at the top of each of these pages. Not every single page has it, but we're moving towards that direction of having a case note area on each of the pages. The idea being is that you want to keep case notes that are related to this topic area, when you're here. So you don't want to have you go to another, we don't want to make you go to someplace else to do that. So we have case notes. Whenever you add a case note, you're going to identify a task. You're going to have the contact date for that for that case note, subject, message, and you can use case notes to send messages. So you can, has multiple purposes. One, you can send it as a message. You can send it as a message in an email, or you can save it as a case note without sending any messages. And then you could, in this particular case, for this person, I'm not sure why, but you'll see where you can send it to the Illinois WorkNet team member, or if there's other partners, you'll be able to see which partners you can send the message to. So you could literally send the message to your customer, to a partner, create the case note all at one time in Illinois WorkNet. And whenever you do that, then all these case notes also populate IWDS. So you actually could do 4 different things all at one time with just simply entering in the case note. Regardless if you send the case note as a message or just as a case note, it will populate IWDS. Some of the feedback that we've had is that, well, I have a typo, I need to fix this or that in the case note. Can we just edit it or delete it? And the answer is no, because once we populate that note into IWDS, we can't edit the note in IWDS, and then the 2 systems would be, wouldn't match up. If you have a situation where you accidentally entered in a case note for a wrong person, by all means, we will work with you, but that would take a programmer to remove that case note. And then we'd also need to make sure that that case note was removed from IWDS, which I believe would also take a programmer. Okay, so the first area that I have is suitability. And so what it's going to do is this system is going to take the information that was included in the intake form and populate this section. So this is really meant to be more like a conversational area with the customer, like, oh, I see you're looking for full-time, day full-time, but this type of thing, or it's about the conversation, finding out what type of work they're interested in, what are their goals, what have they already taken, what steps they've taken to get there, what do they see as their strengths. Again, this area is next where I talk about training. How long are you willing to stay into training? Oh, well, this one has, maybe this one's like 36 weeks, but you selected 24. Is that okay? We can also have, what are some of your concerns by not wanting to stay in the program for 24 weeks? So have those conversations up front so they know. How far are they willing to travel? Some of those other physical items. And you can edit this information. Then it'll show them recommended training programs. In your situation, I believe most of you or all of you only have one training program. So your training program is either going to show up in recommended or not recommended. Now, it's not to say that if something is not recommended, it doesn't mean that they can't go into it. It just means that we need to take a look at this and talk about this a little bit more. Like, so if it's about my industry, like, oh, well, you didn't choose, financial service, whatever, for the industry, is there a reason, or, what are you thinking? With the medical test, maybe they didn't understand the question about being able to pass a TB test or, hepatitis screening, TB screening, whatever they are. And, the drug test. If they maybe at the time said, I'm not interested in jobs that require a drug test, you can say, well, this particular job does require a drug test. Are you still interested or not? With vision, if it's okay to have glasses or contacts, then that's fine. If they're completely blind, you might need to have a discussion about what they can or can't do with that particular occupation. Appearance, a lot of these come along with like the service industry. And same with the smell and taste. And then the 3 or more tickets, a lot of times it has to do with anything that has to travel. And if they have a valid driver's license. So if they, maybe they just need help with getting a valid driver's license, or is it a situation where like they've really not done well and they're completely unable to get a driver's license. You know, you just need to know that, have that conversation up front. Once they do that, then you can identify if they have selected a program. So let's just say they picked forklift driving. You can say they selected a program or declined to participate or doesn't meet requirements. So you want to say they selected the program, submit it. And the next area is that what you're going to need to do is collect information that is going to be needed in order for them to be able to be certified as eligible in IWDS. And so what we're really trying to do is streamline this process so we don't ask questions multiple times, you know, where they need to enter or do data entry multiple times, but then also say, well, you know, in this situation, you know, are you registered for selective service? Because if you know, you're a male and you're within a, you know, certain age, then you need to say that you need to be registered for selective service, and then you would enter the selective service number. If they say no, then you're going to get the link that takes you to the place where you can register them for a selective service and save. They're going to need a skills assessment within 6 months prior to their certification date. And so we have information that we can pull it in from IWDS if they have those they have those like TABE scores. You can add the assessment in here just as informational to know that they have it, but understand that that assessment doesn't populate IWDS. We receive information about assessments from IWDS, but Illinois WorkNet doesn't populate assessments in IWDS. So I just want to make sure you knew that. It would just put it in there like as a case note. And then the other areas we have, let's say for this person that says they dropped out of high school, if you click on the show details, it's going to tell you what documentation sources are needed in order to be able to select that in IWDS. So the whole point of this is that we want to do the information gathering of all the eligibility documents and making sure that we have the selective service number, and we want to make sure we have the different assessments that have been completed and in place, so that whenever they meet with the career planner, the LWIA career planner, that it's, you know, smooth as silk. They have everything, they just do it, and you're good to go. Any questions so far, Beck? Because I've just been talking along. Okay. Go ahead and close up this area. The next.
I was going to say some of these grantees, you may not have an LWIA career planner if you are doing your eligibility in-house. So just to piggyback off that part, it may be you in your office being the person that's doing eligibility.
And then, so once you have all the information in here, and it's worded specifically this way, is collected eligibility documentation, because, you know, we do have some people that are going to be entering in their own eligibility, but then others that aren't. And so we don't want to give the impression at this level that, you know, we are verifying eligibility. What we're doing is collecting eligibility documentation. And then once you say you've collected the eligibility documentation and submit the IWDS application, once you actually hit the submit button, it will send the information to IWDS. The other option is you can collect the eligibility documentation, but maybe you're not able to serve the customer at this time. You don't have the capacity to. So it kind of is like, well, let's hold on to it, and maybe in 2 weeks I can. Or if you're unable to collect the eligibility documentation, it's going to just kind of hold them. Their information is not going to disappear, but it's not going to submit them to IWDS. If they are, or once that you put down here that you're submitting them to IWDS for the IWDS application, then you need to identify whether appointment is necessary. So if your customer is going to hold on to all their eligibility documentations and physically go to a career planner, or if a career planner is coming to your area, to your facility, to get the information, they need to, we have an appointment scheduling tool that you can use to do that. If you're not using the appointment approach, then you just identify that an appointment with a career planner is not necessary.
Natasha, I have a question. This is Lupe. If that appointment status is ghosted out and I can't click on it, that means that something with eligibility status I haven't completed, correct?
You have to put it as the top one as submit IWDS application. So once you do that, then you can be able to, or else you haven't completed something up here.
Okay.
You have to have the program selected, submit the IWDS application, and then you should be able to select this. If not, we need to take a look at the specific person. Now, once you submit this, if I put, this one's already scheduled, but then if you can't select an actual appointment from the tool, then it may mean that the OWIA career planner, they don't have their appointments listed, and they would need to have their appointments listed.
Okay.
And then once you submit it, again, it submits it to IWDS. Now, one of the things that came up during the in-person training is that once they have their IWDS application has been certified, so they've gone through the process with the career planner, they put all the information in IWDS. Here, let me just a quick lesson. At this point in time, whenever I just submit IWDS application to IWDS, it sends it to IWDS, and what it'll do is IWDS will give it a status of an inquirent. Okay, so that person isn't enrolled in anything. It's like basic self-service type customer. Once the career planner certifies the application in IWDS, they are now an applicant. So that means they're enrolled in the program, but they haven't been served yet, but their application has been certified. Okay. So once a person is an applicant, and you can see what their status is over here, and there we have a dashboard that shows you too, but like where it says IWDS application status, this particular person is a registrant, but once they're, so let's say that status was an applicant, it means that now you can go ahead and start doing their career plan. So we have a career planning tab, and the career plan is laid out so that one, you can see this overview of the career plan as you build it. And these other gray tabs are kind of like the builder right here. So the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to use the assessment summary. So you're going to look at their skills and interests, look at their employment goals, education level. I mean, a lot of these things like you've already looked at ahead of time, but it's to you have what we want to do again is bring all the information to you when you need it, where you need it. If you have additional assessment, you can add in additional assessments. And then you are asked to do an assessment summary. And so if you want to look at, something for readiness training, you can talk to them and say, well, what are their strengths? What do they want to do to improve? What can my case manager do to help me? What can my career advisor, career coach do to support me? What can my family do? What other things are needed? So once you do that, then it will create an assessment summary. And so what you're going to do is your initial assessment. But over time, and it comes, we don't, Tara, I don't think we have any hard set rules on how often you have to do an assessment summary. But, internally, I would say you'd want to have, general guidelines of when it's appropriate to do an assessment summary.
Right. But also remember, if you give someone a TABE test, those TABE results are only good for 6 months. So you would have to retest them. So that's something to be very mindful of when you're testing your clients or collecting your eligibility paperwork as well.
Right, for the eligibility piece. And but once they're certified, we tried to make it like when you do these different assessments, this is like a summary. So you're taking the information that you have, more of a maybe even like an interviewing approach, whatever you have at your area, but to think about what are their strengths, what do they want to improve, because these are the types of things that they're going to need in order to create their goals. Like, what is your goal and how are you going to reach that goal? So it's kind of laying the groundwork for my next step. So I'm going to do the assessment summary. You can look at past summaries, you can edit them. And then you're going to go to set goals. So based on, okay, well, in this one, Mater wants to, complete his GED, get skills training, get permanent employment, get driver's license. So we're going to go ahead, you can add a goal statement. You can say, what is it related to? Is it like a supportive service, career plan, education plan, independent living, long-term, short-term, and not, and you're going to usually start to not started because this is like the initial plan. And then you add the goals, so you can see them added to this list. You can edit them. And then if you once you want to say, okay, well, now I want to go ahead and do plan services. So I can do one of two ways. I can either go to build a plan, or I can go to hit view or add. I think it says add if it's the first time. So you can see that these services have already been added for this customer. But one of the things, if they don't have something, you're gonna get this long list of different types of services. And you can search, let's say if they had to do, I know this isn't the right thing. Let's see, how about, like job. So if I want to search for job, I can search by, just a keyword. If I want to filter by just staff assisted, I can filter by job and staff assisted, and then I can add the service if I want to. All these services have been aligned to the services that are available in IWDS, okay? And what we wanted to do was try to make sure that the service was kind of written more towards, and sure it could use some more work, but written more towards like customer language, so that it's like something that they could better relate to. And so you add those, You can edit each of these services. Each service that's going to be added has to be related to a goal. It's going to have a start date, due date, weekly hours, special instructions, and a status of either not started. Well, you can have like a planned, not started. And that's how I would recommend going through and like creating the entire plan and marking everything with a projected start date and not started. The other thing is, so for this one, this one is attend adult education and literacy classes. Well, we also have the different types of barriers that have been identified for this person. And so when they complete this adult education and literacy classes, what barriers or challenges are we addressing? Well, we would be like addressing limited education or training. And if you don't see the barrier that you would want to, that it addresses, you can click on show more, and it'll show more items or show less. And then you can update the customer service. Okay. You can identify the service provider. It's going to have the grantee, and then it's also going to have the provider that's listed for the training program, but then it also gives you the option to select a different provider. So we wanted to make this as easy as possible for you, so it's going to pre-populate it with the information that we have, and if that's information, if you need more, then you can add more. The dollar value of a service, we have it here. I don't really know that, I don't really have, I mean, there's different ways that it could be used, but I don't know at this point in time if we really have anything that you want to add into here. I don't know, Tara, that's up to you guys. But
one more time.
For the dollar value of service, I mean, we have it, it's optional, but I mean, some people maybe use it to, you know, track, like if they've given out like
gift card, gas card, you know, something like that. Yeah, with the set price.
Yeah, or maybe even like uniforms, that type of thing. And then we have earned credentials. And so the earned credential is going to be something that's associated with what you already have listed in your training program. So we just want to make it like super easy for you just to pick which credential you're adding. And if it's not a training program credential, you know, maybe they earned it something else, then you can go ahead and add that on the fly as well. Okay, so once you do all of this, then you're going to see that it's going to build out your career plan, and your customer has a view. It's a little bit different view of what this view looks like. What we can do is do show steps, and then they'll see the different steps, and then they'll see another, and I can show you in the instructions, but they have you know, a little bit more in-depth description of what each of these steps are. But then they can also see, you know, the start date, the due date, and if they're on track or not, or started, I'm sorry. One of the things, so as I mentioned before, you're going to enter these in, and you're going to put the projected start dates, and it's all going to be as not started. They're all planned dates. So Illinois WorkNet is like the communication tool between you and your customer. They don't have access to IWDS, but IWDS is where the actuals go. Like, you think of Illinois WorkNet as the communication tool, IWDS is the actual reporting tool. And so what we've done is we have this crosswalk to the different things that are in Illinois WorkNet with IWDS, because some of the stuff that's in IWDS, you know, isn't exactly like the language and stuff. Isn't necessarily what would make sense to the customer. So what we're trying to really work towards is making sure that the title that we have for each of these services makes sense to the customer, but then we also need to be able to, you know, still tie that into the IWDS. So the very first one right here, and I guess I still have to change this, it's in the header. We used to call the career plan I-STEP. So if you ever see a reference to I-STEP, you can let me know. I need to get it changed to just be career plan, but they're one and the same. So you see the title is Get Assistance with Your State ID or Driver's License. And then there are 3 things, because Illinois WorkNet syncs up with IWDS. There are 3 things that will impact your sync, okay? One of them is this, you know, you have to select a service type. So you'd have academic learning service. You'll see that they have, you know, under academic learning service, you're going to have other support services, and then the planned start date. If these 3 things are the same in IWDS that are in Illinois WorkNet, we do a nightly sync, and it will go ahead, and once it's synced up to that service, any updates that you make in IWDS are going to update that service. So you need to make sure that these 3 items are the same, and that's why we have created this export, so that you know that based on what we have in here, this is the type of information that needs to be added in IWDS as they happen. Because, like I said, Illinois WorkNet's the communication tool. It's the planning tool. IWDS is the actuals, okay? And you can't put planned activities in IWDS because IWDS are actuals. That's what's really happening. And this is our way of giving you a tool to merge the 2, the planning with the actuals. And then you can just update the services in IWDS, and it will update the services in Illinois WorkNet. Once you have a step, like when we first start out, all these will be planned, 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 planned. Once you have one of these that has switched over to started, this status will automatically switch over to on track. So again, we don't want you to have to keep going in and marking all these things as, you know, from not started to started or on track. That's going to automatically happen. If something happens, let's just say that, you know, Mater gets, I don't know, in a car accident, they can't come to training for 3 weeks or something, you can mark it as off track. Just know that if there's anything that's ever been marked as off track or complete, it's because they were manually selected. On track is the only one that's like automatically selected for you. That's a lot of information. Any questions? You can see right here, I guess it happens at 2 a.m. because there's an automatic sync that ran. As you can see, it happened at 2 a.m. And that's how it does it as a group. If you ever need to do an individual sync, you can just click the sync with IWDS button for that person, and you can do that, you know, on demand. You don't have to wait till 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so the next tab, because I only have a couple minutes here, is the Case Notes tab. You can add a case note from this page, but just know you don't always have to go to the Case Note tab in order to add a case note. You know, you can add it for any of these that allow you to add one at the top. You can add it on that page. And the Case Note tab is going to give you a summary of all the case notes that have been entered in for this person. So you can see, you know, if the task was assessment or general, and you can, you'll be able to see all those, and you can export those. For some people, I believe, was Salesforce, I think they need to put their case notes in Salesforce. And so, you know, you could export these. I think they have an import feature, so that is something that, you know, you could do. Or we could help you, work with you, and find a way to do that. The outcomes page gives you an overview of, you know, like the services, goals, measurable skills gains. That's something to be added through IWDS, earned credentials. And then you can kind of self-explanatory here. This is just on, you know, where this particular person is with completing their career plan. The assessments tab is just a summary of, it's our standard assessment summary page. Optimal resume, once they're doing optimal resume and have saved results, you can view the different saved results that are in their optimal resume account. We have an upload section that, let's say, I don't know, you needed to upload like a consent, then you could scan it in and upload that file for this person. And then work sites. Oh, I didn't mention this. Okay, so for getting started, this might have to be another webinar because we're running out of time, but for the work sites, and it's in your getting started piece in those articles. I believe it's early on in there. One of the things you need to do to get set up is you need to make sure your work sites are added into Illinois WorkNet. And so, yeah, okay. So you're going to have your areas already filtered to you, and then you add your work site. So what you need to do is add an employer. You would add in all the employer information. If it is a work site, you can click this link, and it's going to populate both the employer and use the employer information to populate the work site. And then you're going to enter the work site placement information. And once you do that, go back here. Once you do that, it's going to populate your list of work sites. And so you can see the employer, the work site, the job posting, the total number of openings that are going to be for that particular work site. And then as you fill those positions, it's going to ask you, are you filling it as a part-time or full-time? And so you can see your actual. So you can see the total number of positions. And then if I click on this, then I'll be able to see which customers fill that position as full-time, which ones fill it as part-time. Although you can add customers from this page, I would really suggest and prefer that you enter it through the career plan. And I apologize because I forgot to mention that whenever we were here. Let's see, gain permanent employment. We're going to see what they have here. Complete on-the-job training. We'll go with that one. Whenever you do these services, they're either, the system automatically does it in the background, so it has like a different template. So we looked previously at a service that's just like your standard service, like you're helping them with this, that, getting them into a training program, whatever. When it has to do with actually like a work-based learning on the job type thing, work site, it's going to tell you that if you don't have any work sites listed, then you need to go to work site placement and add it. But again, it's going to be associated with the goal. It's going to look at all those work sites that you already have entered, and then you just select which one you want to have it added to. Actually, if it was on this one. And then so once you click add, it's going to populate the fields down here with the information, and then, you know, it'll be grayed out with the information because it's going to take that from the worksite placement, and then you just fill in all the other stuff, and you can see like this is the part-time, you know, versus full-time, is it started, open, all that kind of good stuff. And then, you know, you can see how many hours and like what does it address. It addresses, you know, limited work experience, and update the customer service. So it's going to create the service, which will also populate that IWDS crosswalk export, and then it does it, you know, here as well as populates the worksite. So I'm just trying to like help you with not having to put things in multiple areas. If you enter in your work sites into worksite placement, then as you're building out your career plan, then it'll go ahead and create that service, and it will continue to update your worksite placement. So just remember, do the work through the career plan because that's your communication tool with your customer. Okay, I went through a lot really quick just because there is a lot of stuff to know with this. Do you have any like specific questions? Tara, do you have anything to add?
No, just if you have any questions, I know Natasha's going to post this webinar, so please look at that if you ever get confused. If you have new staff members coming on, please make sure they're viewing this this webinar as well. And then reach out to us through email. There are a couple organizations that still need to submit their quarterly reports, so please check internally to make sure your organization did submit it, and that you're good to go on that end. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then always remember on these pages, related instructions. They're right here. So if you have any questions, you know, try those, and otherwise give us a call. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.